Started with a pretty simple renovation. I was going to replace a exhaust fan in a bathroom, which is a pretty simple project. It's a few wires, and if your hole is already cut for a previous exhaust fan, it's a removal and a replace. We had to cut out some drywall because the exhaust fan was reversed and it has to hang, as you can see with the screw right there and right here. So we cut the drywall out and reversed it and put it on the other side. But we ran into a problem before we hung it. As you can see from the exhaust vent on the fan, there is no ductwork. Now the ductwork is required because you don't want moisture going up into your ceiling, or in this case, the ceiling which is below the second floor. So had there been a working exhaust fan here, it would have been feeding moisture into the lumber, which would have been a big problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out this drywall right here. That's an external wall, so we're going to remove some of that insulation, and I'm going to drill a hole. We're going to put a exhaust port and run some ductwork to it. Pretty simple. It's about 3 feet long. So we will get everything back together and I will get back with you and show you some more steps. Okay, so I'm going to go over the supplies from beginning to end. Obviously, we are going to start with our PPE. There's gloves. I'm wearing a bandana for a face covering, and I've got goggles. The first thing we're going to have to do is we are going to cut off the power, obviously because we're disconnecting an electrical piece of equipment, so we cannot have live wires, which means we also won't have light in that room. So I got a drop light. You can have any kind of light that you want as long as it's run from another room. The next thing that we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and install a vent. So I went ahead and got myself a new spade bit. Always an excuse to buy something new. I have stucco on the outside and I'm going through some wood on the inside. I think it's about 2 inches, so I got myself a long bit. It depends on what kind of outer material you have, or if you're going into an attic, it would be a little different. But right now we're going straight out the whole wall, so I got a spade bit for that. And speaking of stucco, this will easily screw right onto the exterior stucco. I'll go over the process of that when we get to it, but this is just nothing but a vent cap, and it's going to fit right into the 4-inch ductwork that we got. I got an 8-foot long semi-flexible 4-inch ductwork. We will probably only need about 3 feet of it, so we can shorten it or lengthen it as we need. Obviously, to cut the drywall, we're going to need a drywall saw. You can get those pretty cheap if you don't have one already. The ductwork is going to take some tape. This is pretty cheap tape. Full tape is good. It's kind of like duct tape in that you just want to cover up your duct, any holes, any connections, to ensure that no moist air is going to be getting out. So since we're using electrical stuff, we are going to need different wire connectors. I like these wire nuts, but you can connect them in different ways. This is the simplest way. We don't have to put them in any kind of a junction box. Wire cutters, wire strippers, a screwdriver because we're going to be screwing the mount onto the beams. Measuring tape for certain measurements, inside and outside. And then I went ahead and got myself some new 12 gauge wire, because judging by what's up there in my ceiling, I may have to extend some of the wire because it doesn't reach long enough, because we had to turn the fan mount around. And I wanted to go also and streamline my switches. We had a single switch that controlled everything. I wanted to make 2 single switches, one for the light, one for the fan. So I went ahead and got this, and I'll show you how to do the wiring with that later on. You can get any kind of switch you want, and you can get any kind of cover you want. I would always recommend having them on separate switches, but if you want, you can put them on a single switch, which I can also show you how to do later. So there's our supplies, and we will get to it, and we will join back up. So we hit an unanticipated snag. I had anticipated for the exterior wall to be this, but when I removed the insulation after cutting into the drywall, I noticed that there was an overhang, which is this. So this is actually the ceiling level of the bathroom, which wasn't really a big problem because it's easier to cut through wood than it is to cut through a cement or a stucco. We just have to get a new vent, one that is made to stay open. What I did, you can look in there and you can see screen. I got screen that you would use to put on top of your blueberries to keep birds out. So that should be good for now. Another unanticipated snag is that I noticed because of this, there's standing water inside here. So we will replace that, but that is not part of this job. So we'll come back and do that later on. Maybe I'll make a video out of that as well. But we got the vent up. All I did was cut a hole. I drilled it with that bit and then used a saw to cut an X out. That way I could bend it a little bit, and then I cut the square out, and then I screwed on with wood screws, since we have wood instead of drywall, or instead of stucco. We're back inside. We got our hole cut all the way to the exterior wall. I pulled back what I thought the only insulation before an exterior wall, but as I pulled it back, I noticed what I was talking about previously. So there is our duct cover. As you can see, it's screwed in right there. So now we're just going to run the ductwork, 4-inch ductwork. It all depends on the size of your exhaust fan. Mine takes a 4-inch, which is pretty standard. So I'll run that. It's going to run through here, and the fan's going to go right there. So we'll go ahead and run that duct and get back to you. Okay, so we went ahead and secured the ductwork to the vent cap on the outside, and I taped around the head of it so that there were no open air gaps, because you don't want air either coming in or going out of anything but the duct and the cap itself. If you have open air gaps, there's going to be moisture coming into your beams, causing spaces like this to grow mold or warp. So go ahead and use that foil tape. Then I went ahead and hung the exhaust fan, just the 2 screws inside the beam, and we attached the ductwork to the exhaust fan. I went ahead and tightened it. So that's where we are now. My next step is going to be to attach the wiring. I went ahead and extended each of the wires. So you can see they're kind of like jumpers. Your power wire is going to be right here. Make sure you remember which one if you put jumpers on them. That's your black wire. Your neutral wire, I'll put right here. That's a white wire. Sometimes this black wire is red. And then of course this is your ground wire. Sometimes it's green. So I extended those so that I could connect them easily without having to pull. And I have the same connections over here. Your ground, your neutral, and your power. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to connect like to like right here with some wire nuts, and then we'll get back to you and we'll show you the finished product. So your last step is going to be to connect the cap so that it doesn't look like just a metal box with wires. I've got the wires connected and I put them over the top. My cap actually has a light and a Bluetooth speaker, so there's a couple wires to click together. But all we got to do to connect on any cap, take these little metal pieces here, right there, squeeze them together, and pop them into place, right there. And that'll do it. Once that's done. Okay, so we finished. I put in 2 new light switches, one for the lights and the one for the exhaust fan. Obviously we have to replace this hole with drywall. That'll be easy. But I did not show you guys the switches because it's a convoluted mess of wires in there. This and another electrical outlet in another room were connected through this, which they aren't supposed to be. They're supposed to be in a junction box in the ceiling. So there were a lot more wires than I wanted in order to show you how to connect. But it's your basic power, neutral, ground. We just had one power source and we had 2 outs, one for the lights and one for the exhaust fan. So we just split the power source going in the bottom of these and connected the normal outs right here. Successful renovation.